welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. In my last video on sensualism, I explained that at its core, living sensually is about being perceptive, intentional, and subtle so as to get the most pleasure out of life. Sensualism is about acquiring a keen sensibility to become a master of your senses. The reason I specifically use the word sensualism to describe this kind of lifestyle is to reference the actual senses and how they should be catered to, but also as an elaboration on the softness of its connotation. This can be made noticeable just by putting sensual and sexual up next to each other. Sensual is very different from sexual just by the way that it hits the ears, as well as the images that it conjures up. When the two words are juxtaposed, their polarity becomes very evident, and sensual becomes quite rosy and pale in comparison. That rosiness is the kind of light that I want to cast on the life of a sensualist, of someone who lives sensually. I believe, use the color mauve as a shade that I associate with this, like a kind of pink silk scarf tossed into a gray casted corner. Each day that I think about this lifestyle, I'm trying to uncover more of it to make sense of it and even add to it. Because the theory behind sensualism is something that I hope to make into a manifesto one day. At this point in time, I would say confidently that sensualism is born of a mixture of aestheticism, bohemianism, dandyism, and even at times asceticism. And quickly, for those of you who don't know what any of those words are, what they mean, aestheticism is the worship of beauty. Bohemianism is the rejection of common life, especially the bourgeoisie. Dandyism is the art of doing nothing. A video is referenced above, if that makes absolutely no sense to you. And asceticism is the practice of rigorous self-discipline. Sensualism makes use of the senses, and a huge part of this is intimacy with other people, relationships with other people, which I will discuss at length in another video. It's to make each day a work of art that you can look back on and be proud of. Sensualism is about savoring the moment that you're in, but looking back on it later and turning it into a kind of myth. In the introduction for Holbrook Jackson's book, The 1890s, where he analyzes the very curious frivolity of what was then known and will continue to be known as the Yellow 90s, he said something exceptionally meaningful to me. He spoke about the zeitgeist of the decade and very, very properly included a quote by Arthur Symons. "A man who goes through a day without some fine emotion has wasted his day, whatever he has gained by it." And it is so easy to go through day after day, busily and agreeably, without ever really living for a single instant. Art begins when a man wishes to immortalize the most vivid moment he has ever lived. Life has already, to one not an artist, become art in that moment. And the making of one's life into art is, after all, the first duty and privilege of every man. It is to escape from material reality into whatever form of ecstasy is our own form of spiritual existence. When I read that, I wept for about 5 minutes. Tears were streaming into my mouth because I was laughing, I was smiling. I had never felt more understood than in that moment when I read that. That paragraph, that quote, that part of that quote, should be engraved into a monolith for its importance in the development of sensualism. Particularly the first sentence, "A man who goes through a day without some fine emotion has wasted his day, whatever he has gained by it." Fine emotions are what keep the desperately suicidal from committing their fatal act. Fine emotions, fine experiences, the slightness of certain things that confirm the validity of life. Beauty and happiness, peace and serenity, and even the sublime are found in just a grain of sand. Precisely in those very things that people find meaningless. I have known since I was small that meaningless things were very special. I brought color to those things with my imagination. A small Barbie heel that I found tucked away in a dusty drawer somewhere. A piece of broken plate that I found in the dirt that had just a few flowers from the original completed design. A spider making its web in the middle of the day. How tea leaves unfurl in hot water. A joyride at 2 a.m. A man playing the saxophone in the subway station. Those things are what sensualism pleads you to pay attention to. Those meaningless things are exactly what average people will discard in the monotony of their lives and their insidious daily ritual of comfort. Those people are numb, blind, really. They are the sensualist's enemy, and I guess to be more positive about it, at the very least, the source of their rebellion. So after reading this small part of the introduction, I decided to add a new section to my journal. I kind of look at this journal as like an illuminated manuscript, really. I put a lot of effort into the entries. I don't just write things regularly. I put artwork in here and things. And it's a gridded notebook as well, too, so there's a sense of order because each box is allotted one letter. So this new section was just writing down the small details of a day, those fine emotions, those things that, even if they are small, are still, to you, worth writing down. And I started this on Easter this year. And as you can see here, it's not necessarily a journal entry, but just a list of things that I did or things that made me happy. I wrote down Easter 2022, light incense, agar wood, which is the type of incense. It's very expensive, very high quality. Black lace lingerie, silk kimono, paint nails at piano bench while listening to Ovos Ums, get a latte, first meal as a vanilla shortbread, walk along the path of the Stations of the Cross, which I live near a Catholic church and they have a small walk that's maybe a couple 100 feet long that has the different Stations of the Cross that you can pass by. So I like to go there and walk sometimes. Purchase small vial of jasmine perfume, make love under the full moon, which at that time it was the pink full moon. I can't keep track of all these different kinds of full moons, but then champagne and dark chocolate. So it's just small things. They might just be activities or routine things or running errands, but they made my life, my day brighter. And I thought they were artful in the way that I did them. So for anyone who believes in sensualism, just what I'm trying to create here, I suggest that you find a journal of some kind and make sure it's the most beautiful journal, most beautiful thing you've ever seen. That's how I feel about mine. It's not ornate or anything, but I really, really love its size. I love the binding. I love that it's made of a canvas, like a laminated canvas. It's very thoughtful, small touches that were considered for this journal. It's made in Japan. Make sure it's something you really love and write about those small things in your day. Just whatever makes an impression on you. And if nothing, because I don't write something every single day, actively seek out those things. Open up your sensitivity so that you can have more of those experiences, so that you can fill up the journal with more entries. It doesn't surprise me that I only have maybe 3 or 4 in here now, but sensualism is about living with intent. So my intention is to create more of these experiences for myself so that I can fill up the journal. I want dozens of journals like this, ideally, in my lifetime. You should write everything by hand too, I think, or collage it. Make it look as beautiful as you can possibly manage. I think that's very important, to do it by hand. It takes longer, and it's a lot easier for you to become encapsulated in the act of doing it, rather than writing it down on a computer. And when you look back on these entries, you'll find, as I have, these little moments and emotions. They're like small sculptures in a museum. They're like works of art. You look back on them, you contemplate them, you relive them, you brush your fingers over them again. Your life should be a work of art, or at least your mind. This journal should be a vast collection of art pieces, and the art pieces are those small moments. A sensualist is a collector of such fine objects of life. I think it's time to change the way we live. I think the first step is to endow the meaningless with meaning. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Please, of course, leave a like, subscribe, and a comment below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Always have. Oh, after writing this script and doing this video, I'm in such a good mood. I'm at peace right now, which I love, which is the goal of all of this at the end of the day, is just to feel really mellowed out, evened out, to reach a kind of like space of sanctity and serenity. All right, I'll see you guys next week. I'll be on time. Bye.